Hi there. I wanted to put this video together as much as for my own personal benefit when I look back years later, but also to help others who are going through a similar path. So I've decided to do a Ayahuasca retreat in Asia somewhere. I'm not really saying where because it's still a little bit illegal here, so I won't be sharing like locations or anything like that. My background and experience is probably a little bit unique in that I used to be a drug addict, an alcoholic. I spent many years, I've been clean now for coming up, it's 12 and a half, nearly 13 years. I spent the first 8 years of that in Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, which I rate absolutely thoroughly. That program doesn't agree with things like ayahuasca, which I completely understand. So it first came to my awareness in about year 2015. I was having quite a challenging time, working a lot. It came to my awareness, then I discounted it because I was like, it's mind-altering substance. It's basically drugs. Like, I can't do drugs because I just do more and more and more. I've got a highly addictive personality, to put it mildly. Forward on about a year, it kept on kind of popping up into my awareness. I'd see an article written in the newspaper, I'd see something on Facebook, a friend would say, just little bits would kind of drop into my awareness. Fast forward about a year, I had been through a really rough patch. I'd done quite well in a number of things like business, financially. I was in a very comfortable position, but I was having a lot of physical issues. I was having sciatica due to a back injury, very debilitating. I was basically put on my arse for on and off for about a year, couldn't barely walk 20 meters. Read a book by an English guy who'd moved to Cusco in Peru, and he said about his ayahuasca journey. Read that book and discovered through it this guy had a retreat. Off I went to that retreat, booked in for 2 weeks. Got there and all seemed okay. I think the first day we did a San Pedro daytime journey. So for those who are not aware, San Pedro is very similar to magic mushrooms. It's psilocybin, I do believe, or something very closely linked. It's not quite ayahuasca, but it's on a similar sort of wavelength. Did that and got quite paranoid off it. I used to do like a lot of drugs. Like I was doing magic mushrooms when I was like 13, 14 years old. Amphetamine, ketamine, heroin, crack cocaine, normal cocaine, you name it, up and downers all around us, with a good dose of alcohol on top. That's from the age of 13, 14 up to 28 when I went to rehab. So we did the daytime ceremony and I got quite paranoid, which is something I was quite used to from doing shitloads of drugs over the years. And I went quite inward, went off to my room and just like, yeah, I'm good guys, I'm just gonna go hide under my duvet for a couple hours. And it actually put me, the feeling I had was like being in a full heroin withdrawal. So my legs were aching, hot, cold sweats, just imagine the worst flu you've ever had, times about 20, and you get somewhere close. And I remember looking out the window and looking at this beautiful location, big mountains in Peru, looking at this mountain, is like all the colours of the rainbow, like mirroring across it. It was quite stunning. I was like, I just want clarity. That's all I want right now is clarity. I just want to be able to see properly, I want to be able to hear properly, I want to be able to think properly. And it clicked on me. I was like, I've already got all that. So that's exactly what I had from recovery. And that was a message I needed to hear at that time, I think. Next day I said, guys, thanks very much, but I'm out. And they said, no, stay, do the ayahuasca ceremonies. I went, no, I'm done, thank you very much. Went off exploring Peru, around Cusco, and I broke a lot of personal beliefs and boundaries. So I went and stayed in a hostel never stayed in hostels before, I stayed in hotels. Lots of cool stuff happened with that, met some cool people. Some random Dutch girl took me out to a disco, and I was like dancing, which for someone who's quite self-conscious, being teetotal sober, dancing on a stage in front of a room full of people is like... I then did some organised trips and kind of adventurous exploring stuff. Keep in mind I had kind of on and off ongoing sciatica at this time, so it's quite worrying. A lot of hiking, cycling, kayaking. And on this trip, I'd always had a belief system that if you get into a relationship, like, that's it, you're not really going to have any more fun and you're not going to do anything for yourself, and it's kind of, life gets a bit boring. And I met this young Canadian couple on there, and this young Canadian couple, like early 20s, they worked together doing forestry plantation, earned decent money, did that through the one season, it's summer or winter in Canada, and rest of the year they went off traveling together. I was just like, it just completely broke down my belief system. So also on this trip, there was an American family, and these guys they had 3 kids, 3 boys. I think they had 2 of them with them. One was 9 and one was 14 or 15. And they'd sold their house. They'd quit their jobs. They'd given up everything. They'd taken the kids with them, pulled the kids out of school and gone travelling South America. And I was like, what about schooling the kids? I said, well, we're teaching them as we go. They're learning language, they're learning geography, they're learning maths because they're dealing with figure. Like, just the education these kids were getting was just unbelievable. They're gonna, they get to like 17, 18, they'd be these beautifully well-rounded, worldly, wise beings. And that completely and utterly obliterated my belief system on when you have kids, that's it, your life is over. You just won't give up having any fun ever again. Now, the skeptic can sit there and say, this is just random coincidences, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not looking to get into an argument with anyone to prove a point. To me, that's what I saw. That was my belief. It completely reframed my belief systems, which is kind of what this stuff's all about. Fast forward a few years, I was at a surf camp in Lombok, Indonesia, and randomly met a Swedish guy, and he's talking about ayahuasca, and I said, oh yeah, I've kind of dabbled on the edge of it before. Said about an experience he'd had, been quite life-changing for him, helped him work out a lot of stuff, and I've said, can you give me details? He said, yeah, there's this Nigerian woman who comes to Sweden and does retreats, so got her details. Off I went, jumped on a plane, went to Sweden, ended up at some scout hut in the middle of some nature reserve woods, and like, this is like classic opening scene from a horror film, this deserted scout hut, and I'm just like, these 25 Swedish people, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here? But it was super cool. It's opened up a lot of awareness for me, made me much more connected with nature. I've documented all this in written format, but this is the first time I've done it on video. Then a couple of years went by. There's big gaps of time, like a few years each time in between this. A couple of years went by. One of my friends who was in recovery started speaking to me about ayahuasca. He said, do you know anything about it? I said, well, actually, funnily enough, yes, I do. And through a friend of a friend, I got details of a English guy who lives in Peru, who was doing a retreat in Glastonbury, which is near where I live in the UK. So off I went, year in a field, and these guys were full on hippified. They were as hippie as you get, which is, it's cool, but it's not me. But I went there and it's a very different experience, but it's quite a surreal one. So I did the ayahuasca, and I've learned I just go very inward and kind of shut down and get quite paranoid, something I'm looking to work through. Generally, I'm not like that at all, but had quite a bad trip, and I was throwing up a lot, which is fairly common. And I'm pouring with sweat. I've taken my shirt off in this yurt and I'm literally sweating like anything. And a guy says, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, I think I need a pee, so help me up, help me get outside." I walked outside, walked around the side of the yurt, I'm going for a pee, and boom, I had a flashback. It took me right back to 2010 when I crashed a vehicle which is under quite strange circumstances. I won't bore you with all the details, but I crashed a vehicle in front of an off-duty police officer. The next people to drive past were on-duty police officers. Lucky to walk away with a few scratches. It was flipped and rolled a 3.5 ton lorry and just walked away. But when the police came, I was there taking a pee at the side of the field, and I was off my face on cocaine and alcohol. It took me right back to that place, like boom, I was there. That was very surreal. Now, the thing that's interesting about that, looking back, I couldn't see it at the time, looking back, that incident was the catalyst that enabled me to get clean from drugs and alcohol 10 months later. At the time, I couldn't see that, and I carried on drinking, I carried on doing drugs, whatever. But that was the starting point that the journey on followed. So basically, I've been at a bit of a crossroads for the last 6 months or so of my life. I'm in a very comfortable position, but I feel a little bit unsettled. Relationships is something I've always struggled with. The rest of my life has got together really well since 2010. I've had lots of success in business, finances, every aspect of my life is pretty banging. Relationships can't quite work out. There's some deep-seated trauma going on there. When I was 4 years old, it was a very violent robbery, so it was never diagnosed. There's a lot of severe PTSD in my life. So basically, I'm just going to explore, and I will do my very best to video document it as we go along. I'll put this in a small series. Thanks very much for watching. Any questions, please do fire away. Cheers, bye.